clipped a newspaper account that would say, gee, it worked and it worked well.
Well, I've been looking
do you have
for
any?
that.
Actually, I do, though.
Can you cite a couple?
Yes, ABC News about a year ago ran a series of news stories about, I believe, Arizona, Phoenix, Arizona.
Right.
It's had great success.
That's it's the one that's kept being used time and time again. And what actually happened in Phoenix was the public sector came back in and took back those services from the private contractors after one cycle of contracts, and specifically the trash hauling. That's always the one that's being cited. In Portland, here's what I think the union's position in this is one that we agree that there is going to be a situation in the future where the constraints on budgets in the public sector are going to have to require change in the way things are being done. And we understand that, and we're not opponents to good government. We're not opponents to efficiency, and we're not opponents to quality. And we understand the accountability. 9 times out of 10, we live in the communities that we serve. And so we know intimately the pressures on taxpayers.
Sure.
In Portland, Maine, there's a labor management committee going on right now. They're bringing back services in-house. They're on the verge of creating a construction company, an in-house construction company, because over the last 3 years they've found the public sector can do it better and more cost-effectively. And it's from the point of view of the city manager to the commissioner of the Public Works Department down to the rank-and-file workforce. It'll work, but it requires change top to bottom, and that's what we argue.
Mike, I first asked you at the beginning, what city services do you think would be best served by a contracting out?
Well, again, I don't know. I'm going to sit down and I'm going to look at all that.
Yes, I mean, which one would you start with?
Well, I'll tell you,
start looking
there's
at?
one place that Chip and I sure looked at when he was on the council with me, and that was the ambulance service. It's obvious that the voters of Portsmouth that weren't interested in having their ambulance service privatized, but I tend to think that that is more fear of something being different than it is a fear of a decent service. But let me get back to what Tom has said.
Okay, so you're not willing to start to talk about anything but the ambulance service? Was it
no, this is one we've talked about.
Is it school cafeterias, is it janitorial services?
No, but
I
will tell you.
Is it
I'll make
fire?
some general
Where do you begin
observations.
and where do you end?
We don't know. We're
and
sitting
you're not
down,
willing to
we're
say
sitting
that
down to talk about it and to explore it. And I think that's the point that's extremely important
I would hope
to understand is
I
that
think it's
there is
interesting, though,
nothing
that
on
you
the
won't
table.
even single out one area, except for the ambulance, which is already on the ballot and defeated. You won't single
Well, it
out
wasn't- it
one
wasn't on the
area
ballot.
We would really
where you would start.
No, because what I'm saying to you is you don't seem to understand where the city is right now. We're sitting down to begin to explore. We're not trying to be divisive about it or anything else. We're simply sitting down to see how can we do it better. Let me tell you how things have worked out in the city so far. We had a referendum back 2-3 years ago about a spending cap. It was defeated. And the message I got very clearly from the voters, I got elected in that election.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. And it was in spite of the fact that I was in favor of the spending cap. And I think the message in my being elected and in some of the other things that occurred in that election was voters were saying, continue to give us our services, but do not raise our taxes. We don't want to have a spending cap used to raise our taxes, but you, the elected officials, you find ways to do it. And since then, we've been pretty successful at it in Portsmouth. We've had only modest tax increases in 2 years and a modest tax decrease this year.
Right, we just did a program with 2 city councils
exactly.
on the budget. I called it a love fest that day because that's what it seems to be.
And it is a love fest. And you know why it is? Because we're working together and we're working on things in a non-acrimonious way. And we all, that's exactly what we're going to be doing when we sit down to talk about privatization.
I would hope you bring in the labor unions as well to include that, because I think you'll find they won't be acrimonious and they will be willing to cooperate. And I use that word with caution because I know for our members the word cooperation engenders lots of fear and loathing, and it's not. It's for good cause because oftentimes they are taken advantage of as anybody
and I have
in the
the same
workplace.
concern because when I sit down and start talking with people who usually want to spend city money, that's usually what they're talking about is cooperation. You know, let's you people who want to save money should be cooperating more with us.
The goal here is to provide service in an efficient way, and if that's truly the interest of city government here, I argue strongly, and I can case by case show you examples where you will find, and I'm saying this with all impartiality in the subject, that you'll find keeping it in the public sector is the way to go.
Well,
and there are other people that are looking
let
into
me-
this as experts. David Osborne, Reinventing Government, he says specifically, if you're looking to improve things, protect the interests of the public employees, because that's where your innovation is going to come from, because they're the frontline workers. And in whether it's private industry or public service, public sector, you find innovation from your frontline workers.
And I agree. I think that we have employees who served us, and we do take very good care of our employees in the city of Portsmouth. I think that they do better
Let me
than
jump
they would
in.
if they were in the private
this
sector.
This is too nice. I
Nice
agree
for
with you that the frontline worker has rarely been asked how to improve the services. My contention is that the people at your level, the union leadership level, are the ones who are the stumbling blocks and the ones who resist tooth and nail
It's a very
any change.
hackneyed approach these
I know,
days.
but that's I think you can look at the examples in the past.
What examples
Well,
specifically?
the
I can't let you
example
walk away with that.
specifically is seniority. You will allow the last hired to be bumped. The last hired is probably a bright young person with a lot more education than the first hired, because
That's a wild assumption.
because our standards are rising all the
in
time,
the private industry,
and you're
no.
allowing them. Look at the
That's
school system
totally
in
erroneous.
Portsmouth.
Totally erroneous.
No,
Give 'em a
no,
chance.
it's not. In the
The
school
private-
Well, yeah, but how about giving Chip a chance to finish the
the
story?
school system in Portsmouth just decimated the teachers' ranks, and they were the last hired teachers' ranks, and they did have more and better education.
I'm sure you know people in the private sector who have been at their business for many, many, many years, 30, 40 years in their profession. And I dare say that you would never make the case to them that their years of experience are the reasons they should move aside for a younger person. They would tell you, and you would agree with them, that no, it's the wisdom that I've acquired over the 40 years that make me the resource
Yes,
and the
but you-
valuable
but
commodity
what you
that
guys-
I am.
what
Why
you-
doesn't that apply for a frontline worker?
Here, listen, what you guys want to do is make it policy. You want to forbid somebody from being fired
No, we want
instead
to.
of, you want to do it by
we want to
length
remove
of
arbitrary.
service.
We want to remove arbitrary actions of management. That's what the collective bargaining process is all about. To stop arbitrary decision making by management, and it's management's
And that
tendency
is
to do that
and
that's
that is
created the need
exactly
for
a
collective
hackneyed. I
bargaining.
mean, I think you guys with that
That isn't
attitude,
hackneyed.
that
Oh,
is.
please,
And in a
please.
I don't think you find.
That's
in-
every day.
But Chip, in a situation where the budget calls for layoffs, how would you go about it, if not by seniority?
well, by performance.
Give everybody a test?
Absolutely by no. If you set up your management properly, you know who the slackers are, and you know who the producers
And
are.
remember, Tom had just asked a little while ago for managers to manage. And when you use seniority, for example, you're doing exactly the opposite. The
Managers-
manager that
right.
Tom wants to manage, to save the taxpayer money, is now hobbled because he has to let go
Good
the
management.
youngest person.
Don't
That's not
talk-
management. You got to have
talk to-
flexibility in management as
Talk
well.
to the,
to any
person,
consultant
talk to the
that's getting
teachers
paid.
who were laid off
Fine.
and ask them about
Talk to
seniority.
any consultant being paid $300 an hour to advise management and how to approach things, and they will not tell them ever to induce competition between individuals. That is not going to create a solution. That's going to create the acrimony that you were talking about before between labor and management. That's going to create it in the workforce, divide it, and make it go different ways, and create a situation that will cause it to fail.
That's a straw man. You're setting
No,
up a
that's
straw
not a
man. That
straw
doesn't
man.
happen in the public, in the
Before we
private
get-
sector.
It certainly does. In fact, David Osborne speaks to that specifically, and so do anybody that's involved with Edward Deming's approach to management, which is the wave sweeping private sector industry everywhere today. It's you don't create competition amongst individual workers. You create
I
teams.
agree with you. I agree
Okay,
with you,
okay,
but
you're
I don't
saying-
think anybody is creating
That's what you
competition.
just argued, though. You're saying you got this young person and this old person. Let's pit them against one another.
No, I didn't say that.
But the thing is that
I didn't
Deming,
say that at
that's
all.
the dynamic
What
you're
I said
creating.
was
That's the dynamic you're
the person
creating.
who is the best producer should keep his or her job. When you have a system of seniority, the best producer is not even considered.
right. And the other thing
The
is,
assumption being
another
that-
thing, Tom, Deming does also say that if employees will not buy into the total quality management system, that at times you have to let people go. If they won't buy in,
Well,
you have to be able to cut them out.
Deming
If
also
you're using
knows-
seniority, you can't do that.
Deming also knows that it's not the frontline worker that resists the new approaches. It's
Oh,
middle
I-
management that
I
resists.
agree with you
Okay,
that's where the
completely.
roadblock
I
is.
agree with you
Let me
completely.
get us
Middle
back on
management.
track with the privatization.
All right.
But
I think this is the point
I
of
think it
privatization.
certainly
that
is
we have
relevant.
this roadblock
It's
here.
relevant. You know, when the economy takes a downturn is when you get into these problems of budget cutting, et cetera.
Well, no,
When
I don't think that's true. I don't
Well,
think
it
that's
certainly
true.
is true in Portsmouth right
we
now.
were getting into the problem in the 1980s, and the only reason we were able to avoid it is because the
All right,
economy
let
was
me put
growing
it a
so
different
quickly.
way.